Welcome, wherever you are. Allow yourself now to step away from the day, from the noise, the motion, the responsibility. Let your breath slow, let your eyes soften, and let your thoughts drift gently, not away from the world, but deeper into it. Tonight we will travel to a time where myth and history flow as one. To the misty highlands and ancient islands of Japan, where mountains whispered to gods, and gods walked among mortals in silence and light. This is the story of Amaterasu, the radiant sun goddess of Shinto tradition, a being of light and warmth, of exile and return. But beyond the tale of her brilliance lies a world built in her honor, a world of rice fields and sacred mirrors, of shrines hidden in cedar forests, of embers said to be her descendants, and of ordinary people whose days rose and fell beneath her gaze. In the hours ahead, we'll explore 4 layers of this myth, from the humblest villages to the highest heavens, from daily life beneath the rice moon to the rituals of nobility wrapped in silk and silence. Let the story unfold gently. You needn't hold on to every detail. Let it wash over you like sunlight through shoshi paper. Now, let us begin. Chapter 1. Life beneath the rice moon. A farmer's day in Heian, Japan. Imagine yourself in the quiet hours before dawn. The world is still wrapped in night, and only the faintest pink hue has begun to stir behind the distant mountains. You rise slowly from a bedding of woven straw. Tatami mats creak beneath your knees. Your home, humble, wooden, and open to the cold morning air smells of ash and damp wood. You are a rice farmer, living in the Heian period of Japan, sometime in the 10th century. This land is ruled by nobles in silk, by poets and emperors you will never meet. But your world is different. It is shaped by the slow, steady rhythm of labor, and the constant presence of the kami, the spirit said to dwell in every tree, stone, and breath of wind. You begin your day with a bow toward the kumidana, the small household altar that rests near your doorway, a sprig of evergreen, a pinch of rice, an offering for Amaterasu. Even here, even in your modest hut, the goddess is honored. Your feet crunch on frostbitten earth as you step outside. The fields stretch before you, shrouded in mist. The rice stalks have been harvested, but the work is never done. Irrigation ditches must be cleaned, tools repaired, thatched roofs retied before winter takes hold. The labor is hard and always done by hand. You stoop, you lift, you pull. The earth is soft from last week's rain, your sleeves wet to the elbows, and yet there's rhythm in it. Repetition, yes, but also comfort. The body knows what to do, even when the mind drifts to other places, perhaps to the stories told by your grandmother of the sun goddess hiding in a cave, of a mirror that brought her back. You remember, how her voice would fall to a whisper, eyes flicking toward the woods. You feel that hush now, not fear exactly, but a knowing that the land around you is alive, not just with animals or wind, but with presence, something, what? Not with menace, but with memory. At midday, you share a small meal with your family. Steamed rice, pickled radish, a little fish if you're lucky. The fire crackles softly as children laugh outside, their feet thumping against the packed dirt. Your wife combs her hair by the door, the long, dark strands catching the sunlight. Even the mundane feels poetic. Not because it is easy, but because it is endured. And as the day ends, you return once again to the komidana, another bow, another whisper, a thank you for warmth, for food, for the light, the return to once again, even if only for a few hours. The fire dims, the shadows grow long. Outside, the moon rises above the rice paddies, pale and round, reflected in the still water. The land sleeps beneath her light, and soon so will you. Chapter 2. The Cave and the Mirror. Amaterasu's withdrawal from the world. Now that we've wandered through the daily rhythms of a farmer beneath her light, let us turn to the heart of the tale, to Amaterasu herself, the goddess of the sun, the giver of light, warmth, and order in the Shinto cosmos. But, like many stories of the divine, this is not a tale of constant brilliance. Even the sun must sometimes hide. Even divinity can retreat. Close your eyes, if you haven't already, and imagine now a different scene. High above the mortal realm, in the celestial plain of Takamagara, the gods or kami moved among clouds and shimmering palaces. Their lives were not like ours, and yet they, too, knew anger, jealousy, sorrow. Amaterasu was the most radiant among them. Her light sustained not only the heavens, but all of earthly creation below. Fields grew in her name. Rituals began at her rising, and peace, for a time, was kept. But she had a brother. His name was Susanoo, the storm god, wild, unruly, powerful, but restless. He was not evil, but his presence, like all tempests, disrupted the world. And when he was cast out from the heavens for his behavior, he came to bid farewell to Amaterasu. She agreed to see him, but suspicion clouded her thoughts. To prove his intentions were pure, they performed a ritual of oath-taking of each other's treasures. They created children, a sacred sign of trust. And yet, soon after, Susanoo grew unruly once again. He rampaged through the fields of Takamagara, tore down rice paddies, defiled sacred holes, and finally, in an act so grave, it shattered what peace remained. He hurled a skinned horse into Amaterasu's weaving hall, killing one of her attendants, Amaterasu, shaken and grief-stricken, fled. She withdrew from the world and sealed herself inside a cave. Amano-Iwatotha, heavenly rock cave. Inside, all was dark. Still, the warmth of the sun gone. And so it was that the world descended into shadow. Crops withered, rituals faltered. The Kami gathered in growing fear. Without the sun goddess, the balance of all things was undone. What follows is one of the oldest and most revered scenes in Japanese mythology. A moment of divine persuasion, not through violence, but through laughter, reflection, and light. Big gods assembled at the mouth of the cave, behung sacred jewels and woven banners from the trees. They placed a mirror at the entrance, polished, to reflect not the world, but the goddess herself. And then came a Nuzum, the joyful goddess of dawn and revelry. She danced, wildly, furiously, so much so that her garments fell from her body. The other gods erupted in laughter. Their joy rang out like wind chimes in spring. Curious, from deep within the cave, Amaterasu stirred. She asked, "Why do you laugh when the world is dark?" They answered, "Because there is a goddess greater than you out here." And when she peeked outside, she saw her own reflection. Startled by the radiance of the mirror, she stepped forward. Just a moment. It was all they needed. One of the gods pulled her fully from the cave. Another sealed the entrance behind her so she could never again hide. And just like that, the light returned. It is a tale of loss and restoration, of ego, retreat, and reconciliation. But most of all, it is a story about presence. Even the sun must be coaxed back sometimes. Even a goddess must see her own light reflected before she can return it to the well. And so the rice grew again. The rivers sparkled. The rhythms of life resumed. And an Amaterasu once again took her place in the sky, not just as light, but as legacy. For it is from her that the line of Japan's emperors claims descent. But we will come to that soon. First, let us pause and descend once more into mystery. For beneath this tale lies an older world, one of sacred relics, hidden shrines, and truths not written, but enshrined in silence. Chapter 3. The Mirror, the Sword, and the Jewel. The Sacred Regalia and Japan's Mythic Past. Let us now step away from myth's shimmering surface and drift deeper into the shadowed corridors of Japan's oldest shrines and imperial traditions. Beyond the sunlight of Amaterasu's return, there remains a set of objects quiet, revered, said to carry her presence to this day. They are known as the three sacred treasures: the mirror, the sword, and the jewel. Together, they form the imperial regalia of Japan, not simply symbols, but living links between heaven and earth. And few have ever seen them, and even fewer may speak of them. their story endures. Let us begin with the mirror. Yata no Kagami, the 8-span mirror, said to be the very one used to lure Amaterasu from the cave. It is not ornate in the way you might imagine. No gilded frame, no jeweled surface. Instead, it is said to be round, pure, and reflective. A mirror not of vanity, but of truth. In Shinto belief, mirrors are sacred tools. They do not lie. They show what is, without comment, without distortion. The mirror is enshrined at Ai's grand shrine, a sacred complex deep within a forest of towering cedars. There, every 20 years, the shrine is torn down and rebuilt again, identical to the last. A tradition that has continued for over a millennium. It is a rhythm of impermanence and renewal, echoing the tale of Amaterasu's re-emergence. The old gives way to the new, but the spirit remains. The mirror, however, is never seen, not by visitors, not even by most priests. It is kept hidden, wrapped in layers of cloth and silence, a presence, not a possession. Next, we turn to the sword. Kusanagi no Tsurugi, the grass-cutting sword. Its tale is wilder, more terrestrial, a relic of fire and battle. According to legend, it was discovered inside the tail of an 8-headed serpent. Yamata no Orochi, slain by Susanyu, the storm god, a beast of chaos. Its breath scorched the land, but from its body came this blade, as though destruction concealed redemption. The sword was later gifted to Amaterasu, and eventually passed down to a legendary prince, Yamato Tokuru, a warrior, who used it to escape a deadly ambush. Surrounded by burning fields, he used the blade to cut away the flames, saving his life. And so it was renamed the grass-cutting sword, a symbol not only of might, but of cleverness and divine favor. Today, it is believed to rest in the Otsuta shrine in Nagoya, but like the mirror, it is not shown. Its presence is affirmed by ritual, not display. And, finally, the jewel. Yasakane no Magatama, a curved bead of deep green, shaped like a droplet, ancient in form and meaning. Bizem Bagatama date back thousands of years. Long before written history, they were worn by nobles, buried with the dead, and used in ceremony. Their shape evokes the womb, or perhaps a crescent moon, a symbol of fertility, of the eternal cycle. Bijou represents benevolence, a balance to the strength of the sword and the clarity of the mirror. Together, they form the ideal ruler, strong, wise, and kind. This jewel is said to be housed within the imperial palace in Tokyo, brought forth only during enthronement ceremonies. When a new emperor ascends, these 3 treasures are presented, but even then, they are never truly revealed. What is perhaps most fascinating is that no living person may have seen all 3. Their existence rests not in proof, but in tradition, in silence. In Japan, this is not a flaw, but a feature. The unseen can be more powerful than the seen. mystery invites reverence, and so, through centuries of war, fire, reform, and reinvention, these regalia have endured, carried through storms, guarded through transitions, and quietly reaffirmed each time a new emperor takes the throne, not as trophies, but as threads. Threads that bind today's Japan to the age of Amaterasu, to the days when gods hid in caves and re-emerged only when coaxed by laughter, light, and their own reflection. Now, let us leave these sacred objects where they belong, in their silence, and shift our gaze from the hidden to the visible, to the lives lived not in fields or shrines, but in the quiet, walled gardens of the elite in silk robes and perfumed halls. Another world existed, refined, constrained, and composed. Let us go there now. Chapter 4. In the Court of Silence. Aristocratic life in the Heian period. Now, let the rice paddies fade from view. Let the forests grow quiet. We step beyond the common roads, beyond shrines and storm-lashed caves, and into a different world altogether. You are now in the Heian period, among the elite. The era spans from the year 794 to 1185, a time of subtlety, stillness, and poetic refinement. The court of Kyoto, then called Heian-kyo, was a place where silence held more power than speech, where one's sleeve could say more than one's words. Here, life was less about labor and more about perception, about grace, restraint, the slow ripple of a fan across the floor. Imagine yourself as a court lady, perhaps seated behind a fine screen of woven reeds, or as a nobleman writing verse on a thin slip of paper, with a brush so delicate it shudders with each breath. The air is perfumed with incense, sandalwood, aloeswood, blended with meticulous care. The garments you wear are layered in silk, dyed with colors chosen for the season, for the occasion, and for their poetic associations. Cherry blossom, pink in spring, cicada wing gray in summer, maple red in autumn, and deep snow shadow blue in winter. Each layer, each thread tells a story. Conversation is sparse, but not empty. It is coded, rich with nuance. Glance held slightly longer. A poem left anonymously in a sleeve. The Heian aristocrats saw the world as ephemeral, transient, like the bloom of a flower, or the fading of light at dusk. Beauty was measured not in permanence, but in how gracefully something disappeared. And so, much of daily life was centered on observation. The turn of seasons, the flight of birds, the sound of rain on a paper wall. Time moved differently here. There were no loud alarms, no shouts across streets. Only the quiet rhythm of routine. Tea served in silence. Fans opening and closing like petals. Hours passed in the writing of a single poem. Even love followed different rules. rarely declared aloud. It unfolded through nighttime visits, through moonlit letters, through longing glances across screens. Romance, like all things, was delicate, indirect, and touched with sorrow. But beneath the elegance, there was also structure, hierarchy, constraint. Every gesture, every step was governed by etiquette. One's position in court determined not only what you could say, but how you sat, how you bowed, even how you laughed. The court revolved around the emperor, a distant, divine figure, more symbol than ruler. It was the Fujiwara clan, in fact, that held true power behind the scenes. They mastered the art of subtle control, marrying daughters into the imperial family, advising young emperors, ruling not by force, but by presence. Yet, even here, in these echoing halls of silk and incense, the sun goddess lingered. Amaterasu remained a guiding force. She was honored in rituals, evoked in poetry, whispered of in sacred ceremonies behind closed doors. Fought to the noble class, her light symbolized not just agricultural warmth, but legitimacy, order, continuity. It is said that the emperor's very right to rule came from her, that his blood was her light passed down through centuries. And so, amid the quiet elegance, the goddess lived on, not in shouting, but in shadow, in the way scrolls were unrolled, in the order of words recited, in the reverent hush that followed her name. As night falls, you might walk alone through the palace gardens, your feet silent on gravel paths. Above, the moon drifts through pine branches. Below, a pond reflects the stars, still and flawless. Somewhere, a court musician plucks a final note. A candle gutters. The room dims, and in the hush that follows, you feel not loneliness, but peace. Here, in this quiet, the world is held in balance by tradition, by poetry, by the light of a goddess who once hid in a cave, but now glows unseen in every moment. And now, as our journey draws to a close, let us return gently from the myths and mountains of ancient Japan, back to the quiet space you now rest in, back to your breath, steady, soft, unhurried. We have wandered far, from the muddy paddies of a farmer's dawn to the sacred cave where light once fled. We have touched the hidden regalia, the mirror, the sword, the jewel not with our hands, but with quiet understanding. And we have walked in silence through gardens of the elite, where stillness was a virtue, and a single falling petal could move a heart. In every layer of this tale, Amaterasu's presence lingers, not loudly, but gently. She is not just a goddess of the sun, but a keeper of rhythm, of return, of that which withdraws, only to shine again. And though her story is thousands of years old, it mirrors a truth still felt today, that even the brightest lights sometimes need silence, need stillness, need time in the cave, but always they return. And so, whether you are still listening or drifting softly, now into sleep, may this story remain with you, like warmth on your skin at morning's first light. May you carry its rhythm into your dream. May your night be gentle, your breath slow, and your thoughts light as drifting ash. For now, the story sleeps, and so should you. Good night.